Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we're going to be looking at the Treasure Scramble and the guide from the AFK guys. But as of right now, doesn't seem like we're seeing a lot of utility when it comes to PvP, when it comes to the Treasure Scramble and looking at Helia. Now the reason being, does have some really big issues with survivability, and of course in other game modes not quite as vital as it comes in Treasure Scramble. We are seeing her getting burst down very fast, dying very easy, which of course Treasure Scramble can be very detrimental. And she does require a very big build out with our Draconic heroes. Now for a majority of players, Draconic heroes, at this point, most players have Hilduin already built, and then usually one additional Highborn Draconic hero. That's it. That is where we are at the state of the game, where it is that hard to build out these Draconic heroes with only having one that is really truly built, which is kind of crazy to think. But let's hop over, let's take a look at this guide, and we'll break this all down. All right, guys, so here we are in the Treasure Scramble Forest debuff guides. Again, as always, big shout out to the AFK guys for putting this out. And you can see we are sitting on 7 teams. This is, of course, the reason why we say when it comes to Beast Resonance, when it comes to getting them to 18, it really does make a big difference, because in this formation or in this game mode, you are running 7 beasts, not including every other game mode that you run a crazy amount of beasts. And you'll notice that some of these do require a pretty decent build out to do incredibly well. So let's start over where we always do in the top left. Team number 1, which is the Seal. Now, looking at this one, the Awakened version of Thorin, very hard to kill, comes back to life. The original version of Taylene, the exact same, very hard to kill. Same with Sheltier, comes back to life. Nox runs around like crazy. And then, of course, Eugene to top it off with the Slumbering Seal. Now, the big thing in here is the Seal. That is the pet that is going to do the damage. This and everybody else is going to keep everyone else alive. Well, the Seal does damage overall. Now, there are substitutes, and you can see there are a lot of substitutes for this one. Honestly, the first one, the Awakened version of Thorin, that is one that a lot of players did not choose to build or have not built at this point, meaning that we have Hilduin in here, there's Brutus in here. Honestly, I would probably use Lucilla if you do have her built. Then, of course, Lucius is in here, which I probably wouldn't recommend, but thinking of Albedo and Melion, definitely some good choices as a substitute within here. Now, the original version of Taylene, again, looking right there at Lucilla, very, very strong. Hilduin's in here, Cregor's in here. Now, one thing to note with Cregor is when it comes to Cregor, he does require an E60 if you really want him to shine in PvP. Also have the Awakened version of Taylene in here, and of course, Brutus. Brutus used to be just a monster. Same with Kinisa and Rook that were within the PvP aspect. Now, Sheltier, for a majority of players, they will not have Sheltier at this point. So putting probably Redell would be my choice in here, just for the simple fact that you'd have him built. Flora always does work incredibly well in this game mode as well. And then we do have Amelia in here with crowd control as our support hero or keeping them alive. You can see Shuna is in here. Also looking at Silas, looking at a couple of heroes like Ivan that you might have built out or you might have sitting on the sideline for a while because they don't have a ton of utility in different game modes, but this is a place that they can definitely be used. Now you'll notice right here in the bottom that there is also the 2 teams version. This is what you should be running when the Treasure Scramble opens, and this of course is going to be adjusted once you start getting into the multitude of teams, but these 2 team versions are the ones that you do when you're opening. Now, looking at the Awakened Leica, this, of course, is a huge priority when we start thinking of the Awakened version of Haelia and the Awakened version of Leica. They are still the top 2 Awakened heroes to build. Then, of course, we have Gwen. I feel like Gwen at some point could be possibly pretty soon is starting to be replaced or is going to be replaced. I know a lot of players have her built or finally have her built. We did see a lot of utility with her in the last Vault of Time, but as it sits today, not seeing her used in a ton of different places anymore, which means that the power creep, I can see maybe even the next 2 or 3 next couple months that we could see her being replaced out of some formations. Zora is still making a very, very strong staple in here, as well as right here with our little Enthusiasm boy, which is pretty cool. But Tamaris definitely used in here for crowd control. Now you'll notice in here we do have Zorath, we have Aziza in here, we do have Kinisa and Rook and Adrian and Lise. A lot of other heroes that really fit the bill in here. Same with Zora, where Zora seems like she's really being used in a lot of different places. I can see her staying or maintaining right in that SS tier. You can also see Kelton is in here if you have him built, Misha, and then of course Amelia is in here as well. And the version right here is if you don't have the awakened version of Leica, this is the version that is running Hildwyn instead of Leica within here. So again, pay special attention. And then of course we do have Panda Dumpty in here. But you'll notice the 2-team version right here does have Skylin. Now for a majority of players, including myself, Skylin is not a chance that we haven't built. So Skylin you'll actually see right here with the awakened version of Helia. And then of course we do have Zora in here, we have Misha in here, a couple other heroes that kind of replace and can replace that awakened version of Skylin because the hero is so expensive. Now the awakened version of Lucius is the 3rd team. Now of course for this one, a lot of players were questioning why the awakened version of Lucius is not working. He has survivability issues unless you build him up very, very high, or you go ahead and get defensive. Now, with the defense in here, you can see right here, we have the Fox Fatale. That is going to provide crowd control. That is going to keep people off of the awakened version of Lucius, allowing him to live. You have the damage mitigation of Gavis. You have the damage mitigation of Hildwyn. You also do have the buffs and everything else that these 2 support heroes, Milion and Jerome, do bring, making him and really getting him to live. If you want the awakened version of Lucius to do damage and really build out, he requires a big build out. We're talking plus 40 signature item, 9 of 9 or 18 of 9 furniture, really overbuilding him with like a 72 engraving. That is the place you're going to see him shine. Now, of course, if you don't have Lucius built, this is the version, and this is the original version with the awakened version of Belinda, which does have the Rock Lizard, very similar heroes within this lineup. But of course, if you don't have Lucius built, very similar to not having that awakened version of Thorin built, you can go ahead and substitute in a bunch of different places, including Lavatoon coming in here. We have Palmer, we have Naruko in here. Now you notice Helia is right in here, but overall not seeing a ton of utility. Aurelia in here as well. And 3-team versions are in here at the bottom. Now team 4, Alna. Now this one, very interesting to see because the utility of Alna is still there with that 9 of 9 furniture. And of course, Skylin is here. Now the reason for this is Skylin, very similar again to the awakened version of Lucius, has survivability issues. Alna will keep him alive, allowing him to maximize the damage. And when we're thinking of the Highborn Draconic heroes, he is really, really strong when it comes to damage. Staple in a couple different game modes. We have Liberta in here, we have Gorn in here, and then of course Lucilla. But overall, if you do not have Skylin, you can see Zora is in here. And then, of course, we have the regular mega build high damage dealers with Helia in there. And then the awakened version of Helia being very strong. Now, of course, looking down here at a couple other ones, if you don't have Goran, you can see Land still making an appearance in a couple different places. And again, if you don't have Skylin, right down here is the awakened version of Iran with Alna. So essentially, the rise of Alna, it's kind of crazy to think, but Alna was run, such a long time ago, running with like Lucretia, and then of course ran with Rem when Rem came out, and then moved to the awakened version of Iran, and then the evolution again goes to Skylin, of course, with our Highborn Draconic heroes. So that is the evolution, and Alna has stayed because of the abilities that she does possess, making her a priority to get with those challenger tokens. Now, team number 5, we do have Naruko, and we do have the awakened version of Sophia in here. Now, Tarnos is another one. I do not recommend building Tarnos at all, especially this far into AFK Arena. There's not a really big use, and he's not used in all of the different treasure scrambles. But you also notice down here that we have Kregor in here. Again, it requires that E60, so a high engraving on him. So a little bit more of a build out if you want the effectiveness. If not, it is going to be Rem. We see Skylin in here and a couple other ones. And then, of course, Lan. Lan is still being used in a couple different places. I'm still the highest priority Highborn Draconic hero, but I'm hoping that, because I finally got her built, that she is still going to be used for quite a bit. And eventually, the replace of the heroes, especially support heroes, do take a lot longer to be replaced, because as you can see, even thinking of like Ashuna, even looking here at Villanelle, looking at Malkry, those heroes, even though they're kind of falling a little bit more out of formations, they still have the utility of the heroes. Now, team number 6 gets into the awakened version of Shamira. And again, right off the bat, when you look at Kregor, if you do not have Kregor with that 60, I would put Bronn in there if you have Bronn. And then, of course, Kanisa and Rook for the energy disintegration crowd control. Big thing with this one is keeping Scion alive. Scion's damage is super, super high, which if you don't have this regular Draconic hero, you can see even here, higher than Skyland, then Athelia, then Liberta. This hero is doing some crazy amount of burst damage, which is awesome to see. Utility-wise, again, being used in a lot of different places. I can see this hero going almost top tier, if not the absolute top tier. Then we have Athelia in here, and then of course we have Ivan as the shielding and the protecting. Ivan will actually protect if you build up Scion to a certain level. If not, it's going to go, of course, over on the Awakened version of Athelia. Then we get into the Iran comp. And as you can see, Iran is running and is used back row. So those tornadoes will come out early. You can also see that we're running Albedo in here with Rem, giving a buff right out there about Misha. And then, of course, we do have Shuna to keep Iran alive. And then the Ice Crown to actually crowd control like crazy within this formation. Lan as a substitute in here. And the old school version actually uses Hendrik in here as the ability to shield because, of course, if Iran does take fatal damage, Hendrik is going to step up and they're going to block, making this really viable. And the last team in here is the Dimensional team. You can see the Awakened version of Athelia in there with our little flying spooktacular pet. And then we do have our rest of our Dimensionals in here. And of course, looking at Rimuru, looking at Shuna, still a lot of utility. Amelia still being used with Rem in here. So very cool to see overall that they are still putting out these visual guides. Absolutely love them. I'll put a link down below to the guide, but that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.